I'm
Yes,
here.
we
This is
made
my
it
first
work.
time being the acceptor. I'm usually the sender.
I like it. This is like bottoming, but for Substack Live,
Yes.
you
I
have,
was very unaccustomed.
well, here you go. I hope it's a positive experience for
Yes.
you and for all of us. Thank you so much for joining us for this fun,
Yes.
chaotic Friday. How are you feeling?
Girl, I'm feeling a little bit nervous actually. I was like thinking, "Oh, it's Friday. I'm going to do my live with Liz. We'll have a kiki and some fun. I'm going to go hang out with my wife." And then I'm starting to see a lot pop in with like what Trump's doing in Venezuela and saying he's just going to kill people and he doesn't need Congress anymore. So now I feel like I'm in for a long weekend.
I feel like that's been every week since 2016. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like there used to be a thing called casual Fridays or
Yeah.
like Friday, like summer Fridays, but like
Yeah.
Fridays were just, there was a unwritten rule that sure you showed up to work on Fridays, but in the media, you wouldn't dump like a news story on a Friday night unless you want no one to be able to talk about it or you want no one to know about it. But because of the world that we live in now, there's just no sanctity of Friday nights.
They do it on purpose.
Yeah.
Right about 4:30 something happens. It's like clockwork, right?
Yep.
And that'll get me going like, "Oh, okay, here we go." And then about 6:15 Eastern, it'll pop off. And then there'll
Right.
be another one at like 10. So, just feel like I'm
It
in for a night.
Well, I'm sorry about that. And I think is your internet do people hear V? Because it says your internet is unstable. I don't know if that's because
I have
it
all the
knows you're
bar.
bottoming. It knows it's your first bottom and it's like testing you. But but so what do you think about this Venezuela thing? Because yeah, this for and do you want to tell people what it is for people who who are employed and haven't seen the news today? What happened? Trump was asked at a press conference, right? About because there were killings. And he is basically sort of saying that, oh, V is blurry.
Why are you saying I'm blurry? Should I go on like 5G? Should I go
I don't
off the internet?
maybe well don't yeah. Well, we don't want you off cam, but
Okay, I'm just fixing it. Let's see. Is that
okay.
better?
I
I'm
think
doing
it's
mics
best.
now.
I think you
Mics
look great.
and okay, great. We're in.
So
Okay.
yeah, what happened? What
So
did he say and what does it mean?
so here's the deal. Donald Trump has long said that he could kill people and get away with it. It was part of his campaign in 2016, right? I could go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, nothing had happened to me. And so he's still dealing with that now, where they did a strike on what they claimed were narco terrorists off the coast of Venezuela. And then it turned out they were fishermen. And now we're up to our 10th strike, several people killed, multiple countries involved, Colombia and Venezuela. And there hasn't been any narco terrorists yet. There hasn't been any evidence of drugs. There hasn't been any military intelligence provided saying that this is part of like a strategic strike. Um, and typically, if you want to perform military actions in another country, Congress has to declare war. That's just what the Constitution says. You know, and who's funding it and all this stuff. But Pete Hegseth and Trump are like, nah, we're just going to keep killing people. And I think it is an intimidation thing against Venezuela because when Maduro, this is very boring, but years ago when Maduro, who's the current president of Venezuela, got elected in, he was elected maybe not in the best way. Maybe he stole the election. Maybe he shouldn't have been recognized. And Donald Trump was actually the first world leader to recognize him. So that gave him legitimacy. And then everybody in the world was on Trump's ass about this because they were like, why did you legitimize Maduro? So now he wants Maduro out and he wants to put in his own little puppet person because he wants the oil and all that kind of stuff. It was always part of the Civil War to not necessarily win the North back, but to take over more of South America. So sometimes I think that like history is doing a grossness and like somebody got a hold of like how the Civil War was actually supposed to go books and is now kind of like, hey, we want to take over Mexico. We want to take over parts of South America. We want to extract, goods and minerals and labor from them since we can't enslave the people in the North.
Wow. And militarize cities in the north that, it's
Well,
just sort of
that's That's the other thing tonight.
Yeah.
So you can always tell what they're going to do because they're children, right? So when they play pretend, it's very obvious. So they were saying Trump wanted to do what's called a surge, which is like a military overwhelm of an area. We did that in Iraq in 2007. He wanted to do a surge on San Francisco, but he needs a reason, right? And the business owners were like, we don't want you to do that. And the police were like, we don't want you to do that. And the governor, of course, not. So he needs a reason. Coincidentally, about 4:15 today, some truck backed up into the U.S. Coast Guard gates. Oh my God, an attack on the Coast Guard gates.
Mm.
So, now he has this like reason, this thing. So I'm watching that too.
Well, that's fun. And then this is like then you're in a full tin hat, aluminum foil tin hat, and you're like,
Yeah.
who was driving that car? It
Who
seems
was driving
pretty,
that car?
yeah, it seems pretty well timed if you wanted to have a really
Convenient.
good
Yeah.
reason. Yeah, yeah. And then also there's a bailout. Like there's no money for healthcare. There's no money for to pay air traffic controllers.
No.
Federal workers are lining up at food banks because they're not getting paid. But there's a bailout happening in Venezuela
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
An anonymous donor, a friend of Donald Trump, which could be everyone from the Qataris to, Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know. It could be anybody anybody who's funding the ballroom. A friend of him gave him $130 million to pay the military for the month of November. That's not how it works. And if people with that kind of money want to give $130 million to the federal government, then they should pay taxes. And it seems to me like that's what paying taxes typically does. You pay your taxes, that money gets appropriated through the voice of the people, and the military gets paid.
Mm-hmm.
Him doing this is because he's very short-sighted, and he thinks that if they can keep the military paid, then he can call on them, because he wants to call on them for action and not make it seem like they're unavailable. Uh, and it's wrong and it's weird. You can't just like give cash to the president to pay the troops. Like, I actually don't even know how this is going to funnel through the accounting system. Like, if it's even real.
Well, this goes to the ballroom as well. And I called this live Let Them Eat Ballroom.
Ballroom. Yeah.
Because I thought, I don't know if other people think that's funny, but it's just giving French Revolution. It's giving
It
Marie
is.
Antoinette. Everything he
Mhm.
does is so Marie Antoinette coded. And isn't that also, because you mentioned it, so we should talk about it.
Yeah.
Who The ballroom is $250 million, I think. And I think now they're saying it's
300, 350 every day it changes.
yeah, yeah. And as we know, Donald Trump is so trusted by construction workers and like his so I'm sure everything is exactly what he said it was going to be.
Mhm.
But we got a list of who
Mhm.
paid for this wonderful ballroom. Who are some of the friends? I believe
Some of the friends are the Winklevoss twins. Haven't heard about them since that
the
Social
Facebook
Network
guys.
movie. The
Okay.
Facebook guys, yeah, the ones who sued Mark Zuckerberg, saying that he stole their idea.
Mm-hmm.
They're involved there. Adelson, it used to be Mark Cuban's partner in owning part of the Dallas Mavericks. She is a, just wild lady. And she's included there. The Lutnick family. So nice that the cabinet members are supporting it. But also like Meta. I'll have to
Lockheed
pull the list up
Martin,
to get more of it.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Do you
Lockheed Martin.
think?
Why is Lockheed Martin paying for a ballroom?
Yeah, why not? Do you and is this legal? The
No,
Yeah, can you tell us about
no.
more
So
about
here's what
that?
I worry about. Have you ever been like you ever work at a podcast network or you work any job at all in the whole world, even in a chef, a kitchen, anywhere you work, when they give you your computer and they give you your stuff, it's because you're doing work for that company and they own that stuff and they own all the IP because they provided it to you.
Mhm.
What this feels like to me is these private companies buying secure space because there is a benefit to anybody who donates money to any structure. So even if you look at like David Rubenstein donated a lot for the portrait gallery in DC, and that's built up. Well, his name goes on the wall. He has access to do a certain amount of events there. He has access to do a certain amount of like courting there. And so I'm like, you're buying access, surely. And in addition, are they going to charge a venue fee? Like, I was like, I worked in DC in catering, and like, if you want to rent the Air and Space Museum, it's $100,000 venue fee. Are we talking about like, you want to do a party at the Mellon Auditorium, it's $50,000 venue fee. Is Trump going to try and monetize the ballroom for public events for people he authorizes that it's okay to?
Hmm.
Is the ballroom even going to get built? Or is this some sort of like money laundering scam thing? Because the blueprints and the things he's presented do not show actually a functioning catering hall. There's no equipment listed. There's no kitchen listed on the blueprint. There's no storage listed on the blueprint. It's just these pictures of hideous Shivari chairs from the 90s and 60-inch rounds, right? Like, what are we even doing? And he's trying to rush it. So he's got it for the 250th anniversary for America. Somebody said it gives quinceanera energy, and that cracked me up. Like, it's like,
Well, because I'm seeing some of, again, tin hat, aluminum tinfoil,
yeah,
but some people are saying that this is like him creating like a bunker, like that this is actually a site for him when, yeah, hell breaks loose and we're in a total civil war. This will actually be his bunker. Is that going too far, or
no.
is that at this point?
I think that one's too far. Now there was like a basement structure or something, not necessarily a bunker that people will talk about with FDR and whatnot. Um my contact at the Pentagon, who was the assistant deputy uh secretary of the Pentagon, was like, we never knew of a secure space there. I didn't know that that existed. So I don't think that does exist. I think that's an internet thing that sort of spun up. Um, if there were to be a threat on the White House or on our overall country, they don't go underground, they go in the air. There's this thing called the doomsday plane, and there's actually many of them.
Yeah,
And it is a full control, government that goes up in the air, and they could fly over for however long. I think they could stay 3 days in the air or something crazy, but
yeah,
they would move to a different part of the world. And the purpose of this is so that there's a continuation of government. There's enough there for the president, part of the cabinet, Speaker of the House, stuff like that, so that the government can continue while whatever fallout happens and then land again. So I don't think they're building him a bunker. I don't think he's an underground person. I think he's an up in the air person. He might be in that flying palace from Qatar, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, he famously likes to sleep in his own bed, so
He
I could see
does.
him creating an entire ballroom scheme just so that when, yeah, shit breaks loose, he has his own little pillows, and he
I
doesn't
just
have
think
to move.
he had that hotel. The first time he was in
Yeah,
the presidency, he had the Trump Hotel at the old post office, which had a huge ballroom. I don't think it was 1,000 people, but it was like 500. It had a huge ballroom. And I think, like, maybe we should have let him keep it. Maybe that would have saved us. I don't
yeah.
know.
Wait, what
But
happened
he
to his
likes these
hotel?
spaces.
Bec
Oh,
did he
he
got rid of?
bankrupted it. Yeah, he like bought it on a weird bid. It got redone. He essentially, money laundered, in my opinion, while he was there through having the Secret Service stay there, having all foreign
Yeah,
dignitaries
yeah, yeah,
stay
yeah.
there and pay him. And then when his presidency ended, he was released from the contract.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, also, do you remember this? So 2016 lore, when he was running, was he president or was he running? I can't remember. One or the other. He got the entire press to show up to that hotel in DC.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I have something to announce. I have something to announce." And then it was like, "This is my hotel. Now you're all
Mhm.
here to do publicity for me." And the
Yep.
press was so pissed at
Yep.
the time. And this was,
Mhm.
yeah, just day, yeah, one
It's
out
just
of,
scam after
yeah,
scam after scam.
yeah, 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 yeah. Do you think do you think the government, I mean, obviously the ballroom being constructed and being the priority during a government shutdown and as, yeah, people's healthcare premiums are now said to, people are saying double, but I think there's new data that shows it'll increase by 30% at least.
Yeah. Mhm.
So anyway, in that range, which is crazy. Do you think that it is finally, I think for you and me, and probably for most of the people who are joining us today, it
Mhm.
is so clear that it's a scam, and it didn't take this for us to sort of come to that realization. But do you think that that's breaking through with people, or is it sort of going above their heads?
I don't think the ballroom is as much as the ice raids did,
Oh,
and as much as the
interesting.
$50,000 bonus to become an ice person and the propaganda that you see on social media and whatnot. I think that that has really just struck through the heart of everyone because those ice raids have touched everyone. Maybe it
Mhm.
was that you thought that this was only going to be, maybe you genuinely believed he was only going to get rid of the bad guys And now you're seeing the guys that you work with in the factory getting raided. Now you're
Right.
seeing the guys that you work with on the construction site. You know them and their families. It wasn't supposed to be them, and it is them.
Mhm.
Maybe you're in a restaurant or a club, and ICE is coming in. ICE is now raiding gay bars, which has its own historic implications. We have a piece coming out on Substack next week, sort of detailing what's been going on there. Maybe they're coming into your place of worship. They're coming into your church. They're coming into your
Yeah.
kid's school. That, I think, is having the biggest impact on Americans as far as like, this ain't right.
Yeah. Well, when you've lost Joe Rogan, you've
Yeah,
lost a lot of people. And did you see? I wish we could play videos on here,
I know.
because a video that's been bringing me a lot of joy during a week of a lot of chaos is the raid in on Canal Street in New York that happened, I guess, 48 hours ago. Did you not see this
Yeah,
video?
I saw it. No, I saw a
Okay,
couple of videos of them raiding Canal Street. I was like, "We're what?
yeah,
We're going after the purse ladies? It's about to be
literally,
holiday season, okay?
yeah,
This is like a key part of New York and
100%.
tourism."
100%. And so if you haven't seen this video, I think I just shared it on my Instagram. I think New Yorkers, the Instagram
I
New
rolled
Yorkers,
them.
and it's just like I think it says something like, yeah, like ICE trying, and then New Yorkers being like, nope. And
No.
there's famously this woman who clearly like left her job, has a 9 to 5, right? And she literally has like her like work bag. She's in a polka dot dress, and she's just
Yes.
like yelling at this, like it looks like she's yelling at a tank. It has like that power of an
Yeah.
image.
Mhm.
And that has given me a lot of joy. Okay, wait, I'm gonna try and play it. Oh no, this is the wrong account. Anyway, whatever. Um
I've seen
I
it. I
You've
love it.
seen it. If you haven't
Yeah.
seen it, please go watch it. It will fill you with joy. I do think that to me there's been a really interesting narrative shift. And I think you're right that healthcare, obviously, people care about, and federal workers lining up at
Mhm.
food banks. I think is such a visceral thing to see
Mhm.
for people. But I agree that particularly like the I've always one of the funniest things. It's not funny, but it's like tragically funny. Is this whole thing of like the left are snowflakes. They're
Yeah, right.
idiots. They can't
Yep.
do anything, and they need trigger warnings, and they're too sensitive.
Mhm.
But also, they are a threat, and like we gotta bring in the military because they're that scary. And
I know.
it's so clearly, both can't be true. And I think that people dressing up in frog suits and like mascots, right?
I
Priests,
love it.
and getting gassed, or being attacked, right? I mean, one video that really broke my heart, I don't know if people have seen it in Portland, of like a blind man being just like pulled by these ICE agents. Like it's just so obvious, right? That these people are not dangerous. These people are not a physical threat. It's so clear who the hero and who the villain is, right?
Right.
And so it's interesting though, because I think the traditional sense, particularly in Democratic circles, and I think post election, is like, oh, immigration, ICE. We have to stop talking about these, identity issues because that's hurting us, and most Americans are, in the center on this. But I think when it comes to ICE, I mean,
Everybody's
almost
in it.
nobody's seeing this and being like, yeah, this is good. Like we like
No.
this.
No. And ICE agents in particular are not having such a great time either. The turnover at ICE is astronomical. So you have
Yeah.
people who maybe they went for the bonus, maybe they went because they feel like they have no power in their life and this is going to be their chance to have some power. And then they do a day on the job, a week on the job, and they can't stay on the job. This was the problem with the detention centers too. They cannot maintain talent. They cannot maintain people to work because it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like unnerving, and it's like, oh, I actually don't have power here, and I hate this, and
Yeah.
I'm hated. And so the respect or whatever they thought they were going to get, they didn't. And so they're having a difficult time with retention even. And we've seen who some of these folks are. I mean, we weren't getting the best of the best
I
on
know.
this.
Well, that's what, yeah, Robert said they're not physically fit, LOL. I am kind of obsessed with this article from The Atlantic. Again, I wish maybe I can just do this like real
Yeah, there you
quick.
go.
But this article, if people haven't read it, it's a pretty fun read. It's basically showing that because they're trying to hire so many ICE agents, and to your point, retention is so difficult. They are, foregoing some of the standards that they would have
All of the
typically.
standards. Yeah.
And basically, this reporter, there's a person at ICE that told him that more than a third have failed. Four officers told this reporter that more than a third failed the physical test, which is to do 15 push-ups.
Hmm.
Like
Let me
you
tell
have to
you.
do 15 push-ups. So when you see New Yorkers go at it and a woman in, business casual in a
Yeah.
pencil skirt going after him and winning, like that's your sign. Again, I'm not encouraging violence in any way or form,
It's just
but
not working. It's obviously laughable and just
yes.
ridiculous.
Yes, and when people join forces, like I don't know, it gives me a lot of hope to see those videos because it does show the power. I mean, very often we feel helpless. Very often we feel like there's nothing we can do, and these raids, like people have stopped them. Like it really
Yep,
does work when
it
people work
really does
together.
work.
Yeah.
Something else to consider is during the Civil War again, because that's sort of what I feel like this administration is trying to spark. So I keep looking at like what happened then. Um, the Confederates were losing and they changed their standards. It was no longer you could be between 13 and 60 to serve instead of like 18 or I think it was 17 to 40 or something. They expanded the age range, they expanded the weight range. They for both overweight and underweight people to be able to serve because they just needed bodies on the line. It's like
Mhm.
when you put bodies on the line, you are cooked. You're done. And that was the last, I think, 8 months of the Civil War after they changed the standards because they just couldn't keep up. And the problem is putting bodies on the line, like if you look at what happens in Russia, even with them putting just bodies on the line, you are a weaker force. You are only as good as your weakest link. So if you're putting people in the mix, even if they're in the mix with really good people, it doesn't raise everybody up. It tends to diminish the efficacy of the mission. And so,
Interesting.
this is my thing with him saying today, Trump was like, I want to do a surge on San Francisco. I was like, okay, he has some like not right veteran talking to him and saying we should do a surge like the surge in Iraq. Well, when we did the surge in Iraq, didn't go so hot. Okay, this was another time we changed the standards. We had all kinds of people coming in the mix. They didn't have the discipline and training that the regular troops did, and the point was just to overwhelm as quickly as we possibly could. And we ended up like winning and then losing. So what was the point in this? And a lot of people died. So for him to say I want to do a surge on San Francisco, I'm like, okay, you're looking to have some sort of like military presence, like what you see in North Korea, some sort of like World War II Nazi taking Paris situation where visually it looks like you're a big, strong man and a winner, but in truth, you lose the people, you lose the morale of the country, and you lose lives. But he's already said he's okay to kill people.
Yeah, 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 literally. What other similarities do you see with the Civil War? Not to bum people out, but yeah, and also Ben, do you know Ben Sheenan?
Yeah, yeah. Is Ben
Okay,
here?
I might add Ben
Bring him in.
to the because he's a constitutional expert and he
Yeah,
has
I love Ben. I read a lot of his stuff.
I was gonna bring him out after, but let's just bring him in now and just have a
Bring him
fun
in.
and then obviously you can go whenever you need to.
Oh my God,
Um,
Avi is here. Hi, Avi.
oh my
Avi's
god.
the best producer. Avi's the king.
Oh my god, what a
What's
fun
up,
fact.
Ben?
Hi, Ben.
Hi. Hi, Liz. Hi, V.
We're talking about the Civil War.
I, I heard right on cue. Here I am.
We're talking about what similarities today have with the Civil War, not so that we're going to be depressed, but so that we can be better equipped to
Yeah.
resist. So V was going to go and down the list, and hopefully, Ben, you can also think through some similarities that are helpful for us to think about.
Will do my best. V, please continue.
I said, I think, well, I'm from Rochester, right, which is the home of spiritualism. And as we lost 700,000 souls across the Civil War, people really got bummed out by this. And when you have low morale in a country, you don't have a lot of effort into things like war or divisiveness. People are looking for a place to reflect. They're looking for a place to rebuild. And the North was offering that. The South was technically running out of money and thought that they could maybe sort of like come into South America instead of trying to like win back America. I see Trump doing that with Venezuela, being like, well, if I can't control the North, then I'll try to invade the South so that I have labor and resources to exploit in the way that I wish to. But what I was saying is the bad guys do lose. That's how it works out. Like, and when the Confederacy changed their standards for who could serve, it was like 8 months until they ended up surrendering because you're only as good as your weakest link. So I feel like when we're talking about ICE, we're in this place where you're only as good as your weakest link. People don't like serving in that position. Retention is terrible. And the public perception has not wavered on this is not what we wanted. This is not what we voted for. This feels crazy to us and like a waste of a money. This is not America first. This is all these things. So I feel like in the end, the pendulum will swing back into a good place. That's my thoughts on it. What do you think?
I love
I think
that.
I agree with you, and I also see a lot of parallels between this current moment and Reconstruction. I think
Yes.
Reconstruction is one of the least taught eras in American
Mhm.
history. We kind of go from the Civil War and we jump like many decades ahead to the World Wars and to civil rights. But I think back, and there was this period of real progress. I mean, you had
Mhm.
16 African Americans serving in Congress. You had the 13th,
Mhm.
14th, and 15th Amendments, right? We ended slavery, birthright citizenship, equal protection of the laws, voting rights protections for African Americans and former slaves. And then you saw states push back against that and try to roll that progress back. You had the federal government intervene. Oddly enough,
Mhm.
one of the times the Insurrection Act was invoked, in my opinion, for
Mhm.
a good reason to enforce these
Mhm.
progressive amendments. And then you had states fight back even more. And then it was basically what happened is this election in 1876, Rutherford B. Hayes wins, and it was this contentious election. We think that the recent elections have been insane. They didn't know who was going to be president until 48 hours before the inauguration. And they had to
Right.
Yeah.
put a emergency commission together, and they basically came up with this compromise where Rutherford B. Hayes would win, but the federal government would pull out all of their troops from the South and letting the South
Mhm.
kind of do whatever they want. They got taken over by white supremacist governments, and we basically had 100 years of Jim Crow laws. And
Mhm.
I think it's part. I promise I'm going to a hopeful place with this, but I do think it speaks to the power that states have. Like I think sometimes we
Mhm.
take our eyes off of the ball and we think we have the federal government. Obviously, the federal government has power over the states in many ways, but there are a lot of things that states can do to push back. We see some of that with what J.B. Pritzker is doing, with what Gavin Newsom is doing,
Yeah.
and especially if Obergefell is getting considered the
Mhm.
consequential same-sex marriage case, then there are things that states could do in the chance that that gets rolled back. So this sort of part of history where there was a lot of progress, there was pushback. I think we learn from it in terms of what states were able to do against the federal government.
Yeah, it's so
Goats.
interesting that you say that because there was a mayoral New York debate this week in New York City,
Mhm.
and that sort of question of ICE came up, and it was interesting to hear the three candidates. Or I don't remember. There's only two. The third one, I don't remember anything he said.
We're just
It's
here for the
funny.
cat stories. We're
Yeah,
not here to
just
hear.
the cat. Yeah, all the cat stories, and also like the matzo. Okay, that's like a side issue. Do you
Yes.
know that he cheated in a matzo ball like eating contest? Did you guys hear
No.
about this?
No.
He took all
What?
the water, like he got disqualified, which I didn't even know really could happen. Because he was taking the liquid out so that he could eat more of them more quickly.
Oh my
So
God.
every
Forget
fact
it.
I hear about him, all the non-political facts are great. He would be a great character in like he
Yeah,
needs a
it's a great
podcast.
TV show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not to be the mayor, but it's interesting to see Cuomo and Zoran Mandami sort of go back and forth about the ways that actually the police could have a sort of effect and authority over ICE
Mhm.
agents, and I don't think people necessarily realize that that can happen. Can you explain? Can you explain that? Either of
Then you
you?
want to take it?
Well, I can speak to at the state level. I
Yeah.
live in California. You also live in
Yeah.
California. Our state legislature recently passed a law barring ICE agents from wearing protective coverings. So they can't wear masks
Mhm.
when they're in the process of enforcing federal law. Now, there's questions about how is this going to be enforced? Can it be enforced? But again, it's an example of states pushing back against what the federal government is doing. They're saying if you're going to come into workplaces, places of worship, schools, we got to know who you are. You can't just have
Mhm.
no markings on your clothing and your face covered. We need to know that you are part of the federal government, that you are enforcing federal law, because right now that is not the case.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. B, go ahead.
For as far as local police, I mean, anytime you're in a situation where there's a power struggle, there's jurisdiction typically involved. And so federal agents are technically only allowed to guard federal buildings. It's why the National Guard just stood around those buildings in Los Angeles. We have the Posse Comitatus Act, which says that the military can't be turned on civilians. Well, they can a little bit if we do it a little bit this way, right? And people get sick of that. So if what Zoran was saying is putting the NYPD in charge of public safety, which is what they're tasked to do, he's essentially saying that he would reinforce a hierarchy, which is that the NYPD, which does this day in and day out, would have the jurisdiction, the lead. And then if they needed support, they would dictate how that support shows up because, to Ben's point, people coming into a territory or a zone, a secure zone, like Times Square, let's say, and they're wearing, gear that they bought off of Amazon. Like, how do I know who you are? Like,
Right.
and then by the time that you've kidnapped someone or you've hurt someone, it's too late. And now we have to use NYPD resources and state tax dollars to police these fake police. And how do we, like, this is a mess.
Yeah.
So I could see where he could lay out that argument. And I know Kathy Hochul she doesn't get the credit she deserves. I really like Kathy Hochul. She's from
Yeah.
Buffalo. Oh my God. When she's like a Buffalo mom, she's the best. When she tries to perform, like when they're like, oh, but you're the governor, and you could tell like different people tell her how to act, it's very unnatural. But when she's like got that purple lipstick on and she's just like a Go Bills Buffalo mom, she's unstoppable. She called Donald Trump the other day. I had her for an interview and I was like, how'd you get that $187 million back for counterterrorism funding for the NYPD? She's like, I fucking called him. I called him up. I called him direct. I called him up. I said, I'm going to tell the entire country that you defunded the NYPD if you don't put that money back. And he put it back. And so it's like, that's the Kathy Hochul we need.
Why is that not the Kathy Hochul that we see?
Because the consultants in Albany and the people that surround her are like, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. And it's like, no, she's got it. She's got all the balls that Gretchen Whitmer has. And like she's just great. I think she's doing an incredible job. I don't agree with everything, but in terms of like what our choices are here, she's been able to rock and roll with him.
Yeah. I will say the thing that I did love about the debate, and if you didn't watch it, it's fine. It was pretty like, I pulled my Instagram. I was like, because the Love is Blind finale was on the same night, which was a big mistake on
conflict.
Yeah, that should have been, that was overlooked clearly by the candidates.
Clearly.
But
if there were one gay person organizing this debate, it would have been on.
There we go. Not enough gays, not enough women, and it shows. It shows. But basically, most people were watching the Love Is Blind finale, which I thought was concerning, but also understandable. But it was pretty entertaining. Like it was a funny debate, and I thought that they were. I mean, obviously, Zoran is extremely affable. He's extremely talented with digital media. He's basically an influencer, right? And a politician and a sort of policymaker. But he has that quality that I think very that Trump has. And in many ways, the Democrats are sort of very far behind on. But even Cuomo, like just all the three of them had like a vibe. Like it was like they were just kind of like joking and going after each other, but like it was still kind of kind. I mean, there was a lot of things that were there was Islamophobia and there was a lot of attacks. But I thought, oh, this is interesting. Like maybe we can come back to a place where politics can be sort of entertaining. And breaking-ish news. Didn't Hakeem Jeffries finally?
He did. He endorsed him finally. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
What do you think?
Great.
Yeah, 2 days before. What do you
He had to because he's going to need Zoran to endorse him when he's running again for Congress, and it's not going to happen.
I think Guy, you made this point earlier. I think you in a thread you were alluding to like who's on the fence, like waiting for this endorsement that's going to be the thing that swings him over. Who are the Hakeem stands that are like, not if my guy doesn't do it, I'm out if he doesn't. Like who are those people?
Who is this for? Applies so much to Hakeem Jeffries. Like, who is Hakeem Jeffries for? If there's anyone he is for in the chat, please sound off.
Let us know.
But I have not met who he's for. Crazy. Okay. Also happened this week. Yeah, wait, why has so much happened this week? The Pentagon press corps is now made up of influencers. So
not even. I wish it was like, if they had like Emily Austin over there, I'd be like, okay, well, she could deliver a report. I don't always agree what she says, but she can do a journalism. But they have like the guy from Mike Lindell TV. Like, what are we doing with that? Like, at least get some of the good influencers, I guess. If you're going to use conservative influencers, use some of the ones who have any kind of news training.
Yeah. What do you think that this means? Like, what should we expect? And is there still going to be investigative journalism, looking into the Pentagon, or is this going to be extremely difficult for them to cover what this administration is doing?
It's super difficult. Certainly, it's super difficult. The problem is like, I think if there's one good thing I can say, the chain of command in the establishment, Pentagon, and the civilians that work there really don't have a lot of respect for Pete Hegseth. So I think that they're all kind of trying to, they know if they, and people are like, well, you should quit. You shouldn't. People are holding their seat so that it doesn't get filled with another loyalist. And that is a difficult place that a lot of folks are in. That's not a coward place. This is like a challenge every day they go in there. Each one of the branches has their own digital team also, that's in addition to the press corps. So you have folks who are delivering news and briefs to the military, like internal news channels, and they're still working. But I think in terms of transparency into this Pentagon, I don't know that they actually have the strategic meetings that we need notes from the way that Secretary Austin did. There isn't like, they're just, like Trump said, I'm just going to kill people. So that is the report. The problem is, I don't think it's a lack of transparency in so much as they want to be the one to break the news. Like even Trump being the one to break the news about the death of Charlie Kirk each time was incredibly unusual. And I think a part of this idea of like, I want the views, right? So Pete Hegseth comes out and he makes content. But I don't know that he is, actually do know that he's not having the planning meetings that Austin was. So I don't know how much there is to technically report other than they're going to kill a bunch of people.
Right. Wow.
It's insane. I mean, when I saw I think the first three news outlets that signed on to the new rules were the Epoch Times, which is run by a cult in China.
Genuinely.
It was the Federalist, which is a very far right organization. Then One America News. I mean, even Fox News and Newsmax were like, "We're out. Like this is a bridge too far."
Well, because the Fox News journalist that's been in the penthouse, that's what it feels like, that's been in the Pentagon is Jennifer Griffin, who's one of the most, I think, talented foreign correspondents and war reporters of this generation. And she was like, I'm not signing it. So then Fox couldn't sign it without her.
And the ultimate irony of this being, the Pentagon doing this, where like the Pentagon Papers and the famous New York Times case, one of the most like consequential Supreme Court decisions around the First Amendment. I can't think of anything that goes more directly in the face of that than this.
Yeah. And is there?
I think we'll get leaks. I think you'll get just as many leaks as you ever did. These people are not careful.
Right. And is there an upside to the fact that we have such a fractured media ecosystem right now, that sure, having sort of official access, right, if you're a mainstream news organization is great, but since journalism is being, it just exists online in so many different ways and people are getting their news in so many different ways, do you think that there's a world where like it doesn't even matter, right? Like if you're official Pentagon or not, and that news will get to people that, like matters? Like, do you think there's an upside there?
Task and Purpose is still going to get their leads and cover it. Military Times is still going to get their leads and cover it. Preston Stewart is still going to get his. Joey Contino will get his.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get mine. Like, there are people who are still going to have contacts within that system that are going to be responsible with the reporting. The reason why I don't care so much about I don't even tune into the White House press briefings anymore, because if the access you're getting is to an unreliable narrator, then what are we even doing?
Yeah, it sort of exposes that. I don't know. There are certain things about this administration that I think expose things that like were already a little bit problematic, right? Like the press corps. I remember sort of coming to terms to this in sort of in my own experience covering my first presidential debate. And I was like 26 and I was in the spin room and I was waiting for the candidates to come out, and some of the candidates were doing interviews, and then some of their comms people, were doing interviews. And then I see this reporter, I won't name names, but who I still look up to, but at the time was like, oh my God, this reporter is like so amazing. And I can't believe I'm sitting next to her doing an interview. And so she asks all these questions to the comms, manager. And then at the end she goes, anyway, so nice to see you. I'll see you at the Christmas party tomorrow. Yeah. And then gives them a kiss. And I was like, wait, what? Like they're friends, and I think that, I think to people in media, that's like obvious that there's, that in many ways, if you read a Politico, and sorry if anyone works at Politico, but if you're reading a political article, usually it's not like no one found that. It's like a press release, right? Like someone wanted to leak that information so that that's the story that they're going to tell, that those are the talking points. And so anyway, this is not to say that there's too many similarities between the Trump administration and every other administration. I think this is so like on another level, but yeah, it sort of exposes this sort of I don't know, the relationship between the press and the government that's always been a little finicky.
It's a social club. I mean, like when you go to
Yeah.
parties around the White House Correspondents' Dinner, you'll see
That's what I was
people
gonna
like in
say.
the Trump administration patting each other on the back. Like, at certain parties from media outlets or talent agencies or whatever, you'll see this weird. And I think that you're right. Like for people who have worked in the media, even entertainment space for a long time, it's normal. But to somebody who it does not have an insight to this, it looks like corruption almost, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how can you be covering somebody honestly and authentically if you're going out to, meals and patting each other on the back? It almost makes it look like a game, right? Like a sporting event. There's like the thing that happens officially on the field in congressional hearings, press conferences, stuff like that. And then behind the scenes, everyone's in the locker room hanging out and slapping each other's backs. I think there's definitely some distrust that breeds, and rightfully so.
Yeah. 100%. And before we go, I know V needs to go in 10
Gotta
minutes,
go at
and
6,
then we can stick around, but we need to talk about the Louvre heist and
The
just
heist.
because there's obviously it's been
I love it. What?
okay,
Me
right?
too.
And
Good. Steal it back. I don't
love
care.
it. Why are we all like bonding over crime? Like there was so many funny
Class of
comments.
solidarity, Liz. Class of solidarity.
I agree. There's something really obviously there's something connected to Luigi here. It's it's a different, there's less sexual innuendo, but I think there's just as much sort of I don't know, like a celebration of crime. And I think to my analysis, and I'm curious if you agree, and please sound off in the comments why you're obsessed with the Louvre heist, if you are. But it's that, and it's connected to everything that we've talked about in this conversation. There's so much theft. There's so much there is like we feel like we are in a heist and there's nothing we can do. And the government is building a ballroom while children are going hungry and federal workers aren't getting paid and people's healthcare premiums are going to double. And same with AI. If like AI is theft, like there's like so much theft going on, and nothing really sort of there's sort of no justice. And I think the media can't. People don't trust the media. People don't trust the government. People don't trust institutions. And so I think there's something in these crimes that feel really good for people. That somehow there's like a sense of justice that's been met, even though it's still a crime. We sort of want, like, some of the comments I thought were really funny on TikTok. Some people were like, this feels like the summer of 2016. Like, or like, it must have felt like the summer of 2016 to like do the heist.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm curious if you felt Louvre heist NB and how you are like, what's the analysis there? Why do you think that so many people wish they could do a heist right now?
I love to break the idea of something being so precious, right? Every living being is precious. Everything is precious. And for this idea that like these particular jewels belong to Napoleon and they're behind glass and they're untouchable, they're so precious. Fuck it. We got bills to pay. You know what I mean? Like we got starving kids or we got I don't know who stole this stuff, but to me, they're like a Batman, like good guy, like a Robin Hood type thing. Yeah. They're probably bad guys, but for right now, they're good guys to me. They're women to me. I'm like, women did this. It was like, oh my God, Sammy's podcasts, the girls at Betches were talking about it. And Sammy was like, I think I know who did the Louvre heist. And the other girls were like, who is it? Is she in our grade? And I'm like, that's how it feels.
It does. It is very girlhood coded.
It's girl coded and it's like, oh my God, yes, sisterhood of the traveling jewels.
Yes. And to your point, and Ben, I want to hear your thoughts about it, but to your point, I think that the thing about, this is, Napoleon had this and it's behind a special box and no one can touch it. Everything that is sacred has been desecrated. I mean, just look at the East Wing right now, right? So in so many ways, the people in power have no respect for the moral codes and even social norms that we're expected to respect. I mean, some of the things that Donald Trump and many people in his cabinet have done, at their jobs, we would get fired
Mhm.
for like
Yeah.
1% of the things that they've done, right? I mean, texting a
Jewelry
single chat.
heist. No Kings. No
Yeah,
Kings International.
there we go. And people being fired from their jobs for, expressing opinions about not caring about, Charlie Kirk being assassinated when
Yeah.
Donald Trump constantly, doesn't show any empathy for many people. I mean, just again today with
Yeah.
his strike on these fishermen.
Fisherman.
So Ben, what are your thoughts about the heist? And do you think it's girlhood? Do you think it was a girl?
I think it could be. I think it could be a jewelry forward man. I don't know. There's a lot of options. A lot of athletes wear jewelry. Very fast people can get in and out. Running backs, stuff like that. So I think I don't know who did it, but I definitely get the appeal. One is that life is becoming more and more like a reality show, and so
Yeah.
things that seem like they're out of a movie seem fun and engaging, and we kind of like an anti-hero thing. But I think to your point and to V's point, there's the law kind of binds one class and not the other, right? And so it's like people in the upper class and elites whatever can get away with breaking the law and stealing from people and circumventing things. Then this isn't, assuming this is not some other prince or whatever taking it in a strange way. If it is somebody that isn't part of the ruling class, then there's you're rooting for it to say yeah, other people can do this too. If you're not going to play by the rules, then we're not going to play by the rules. And obviously, it's a stunt that is incredibly entertaining to watch and perfectly made for the social media era.
Wait, Liz, what if it's Julia Fox?
What if
Remember the trend? Wait, stay with me. Remember the trend like a couple of years ago? Because it would have taken a while to plan a heist when her whole trending thing on TikTok was uncut gems. Like, what if it comes from uncut gems?
Honestly, I'm gonna be disappointed if it wasn't Julia Fox.
I need it to be Julia Fox. It would be her. She's such a heister. She would pull off something like this.
She should. If she's listening,
would.
Julia Heist, we need you. Julia Heist. Julia Fox, we need you to do a heist here at home. And
like a White House heist. She could totally do it.
Yeah. Like,
who would help her? Oh, we need 3, though. Who would be our 3 heisters?
Yeah, that's a good call.
Okay, Julia Fox.
Like Pedro Pascal. Like,
I mean,
right?
Candace Cameron Bure. No, she would never.
We should check and see if all of these people were tech avail on the day the heist happened, just to make sure.
Where were they? I love that. Yeah, they should do a heist where they steal like all of Donald Trump's wigs or something, or like all of his like
the spray tan
and tanning lotion. Yeah, like just the spray tan bed in the White House, and then that would be a really cool crime. And yeah, I think we should end it there. I think this is the high point on which we end this call. Well, V, you have to go. Ben is going to.
I got to go, but have fun. I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye. It's okay.
Bye, V. Ben, on that note.
What an entry.
What an entry. I know. And this is why I want this to be as chaotic as possible. I'm not going to lie. I want this to feel like you're on FaceTime with us and we are just, adding people in. And we are hanging out with the smartest people we know. You, Ben. You and I have been chatting. We were texting last night and you said, what did you say? You said nothing is normal anymore. What was your text? It was like really good.
I'll go back and look.
Everything normal is collapsing. That's what you texted me last night. After you sent me, I was on my way out. And at this point, you can't look at your phone during certain hours. Like, because if you're going to look down at your phone and you have news notifications on, or you have really smart friends, there's going to be something horrible that's going to happen to ruin your night. So you sent me this screenshot, you sent me the White House Gov website.
I did, yeah.
That's all you did, which in any other year, would just be...
It's a boring text, honestly.
A boring text.
Like, why is this person sending me this? There it is.
The White House Gov on a Thursday night.
Super snooze.
It was unhinged. So basically, do you want to describe it for us?
I can describe it. Yeah. So they're talking about what they're doing to expand the East Wing, right? We've all heard about the ballroom that's costing now $300 million and how there's a loophole in a law from, 60 years ago, 60, 70 years ago that allows them to to not run this by certain people. So they're talking about this planning and inspiration stages. But then if you scroll down on the page that you're showing right now, you get to a major events timeline. And if you scroll this timeline, you see some very sensible things that have happened in history. The White House burned down in 1812 after the War of 1812 and, had to be rebuilt, things that were added over the years. And then if you get further into present day, you see some pretty weird things that don't have anything to do with construction.
Yeah.
The Bill Clinton scandal, a photo, Monica Lewinsky. You see a photo of President Obama taken completely out of context. That wasn't a Muslim Brotherhood visit. That was something that happened in Kenya when he was visiting his father's hometown. You see the cocaine discovery. I mean, just absolutely random things that have nothing to do with construction.
Yeah.
And, I think I'm kind of, as somebody who's worked in entertainment for a long time, I'm familiar with the art of trolling as entertainment, and I don't know why I keep being surprised by this, but it keeps happening. Like we keep seeing comedy sketches being uploaded to the official Trump Instagram and White House accounts. But I think there's
sketches.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he puts comedy sketches on his Instagram and shit all the time. Trump, constantly going
Played
after
by
certain
who?
people, made by people they commission or they find user-generated content and put it on their social media accounts. I mean, throughout the election, they did that ad for Biden in a nursing home. That was this beautiful sunrise. I mean, if we're taking the partisanship out of it, it was kind of a funny video. But in the context of everything, it's the beginning of a very slippery slope.
Sure.
So now we're in the era of photos of a shirtless Hunter Biden, on the official White House website, and
like a trans day of visibility with it makes it look like Biden is next to a topless woman.
Yeah.
And he's not, obviously. Also, it says the trans day of visibility happened. Biden made it so that it happened on Easter, and it's no, it's trans day of visibility is always the same day. It just happened to land on Easter that year, and so just littered with weird lies. And yeah, there's something just so disturbing about it. I don't know. It really depressed me. I was about to leave with my roommate, and she was just like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I just feel like I'm going to throw up."
I'll make sure not to send things when you're leaving to have a nice night out with your friends
I
in
never
the
go
future.
out, so yeah, don't worry. That's the easy way to do it. But yeah, what? How are you dealing? How do you? Because you read, you're very well read. You keep up with the news. You're a constitutional scholar. You write books. You have a PBS show about the U.S. government. And so you think about these things deeply. How do you take in information when it's this absurd? When it's this feels this surreal? How do you manage that? Mental health wise.
I think about it again. I think obviously I studied government in college and all this stuff, and now my new professional career. But I do think that having a stint in entertainment really helps give context for this because I see it as a distraction. Right. I see it as something. It's if they want attention for this, it doesn't matter what it is, but what they're doing is they're driving attention towards something. They're having me talk about it and send you text. They're having you be bummed going out of your house. They're having other people talk about it in their daily life. And it's, we only have so much time in the day and attention to spare. And so if we're spending it on this, what are we not spending it on? We're not spending it on talking about the Epstein files. We're not spending it on talking about our healthcare subsidies going away, right? 5 years of healthcare subsidies. People are, 22 million people are going to lose subsidies to help pay for healthcare. It's a distraction. And, it's I don't want to say magician because that gives them too much credit, but it's a bait and switch, right? If you have something crazy over here, and the problem with a lot of this, and this is why independent creators like you, Liz, and V are so important, is because that corporate for-profit media, large conglomerates they have to keep growing. Right. And so when they see a shiny object that is going to drive attention, like this website, like other things, they're going to jump on it, even if they know it's noise, even if they know it's a distraction, but they know they're going to get clicks. They know they're going to get eyeballs. And so Trump keeps giving people bait. These companies keep taking the bait, and then they're talking less about the things that are actually polling badly for him and turning his own voters against him.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, this is his primary skill. He's not a good businessman. He's obviously didn't have any experience in politics. So he's not a good, politician. He's not a policymaker. We don't even know if he reads. But like the thing that he's good at is capturing attention, right? And basically media, right? We know from, sometimes, do you ever think about things that in 2016 were like such a big deal that now like no one would care about? But remember when it was such a big deal when we learned when he was running for president in 2016 that he was his own publicist? Like he made up a name. Like his publicist was famously like Roger Rabbit or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was him. Like, and many reporters knew that when they called, like he would put on a voice and that it was actually him playing his publicist. Like that's what he does. Like this is this is a show, right? And to your point, he's very, very good at creating not just distraction, but knowing that even though healthcare, like literally if you don't have it, you'll die. Like it is life or death. And yet people will probably pay more attention to Hunter Biden, a drug thing, boobs next to Joe Biden, right? It's just a very it's very good knowledge and the worst use of it of sort of what humans will pay attention to. And you're right, the media has this incentive to really cover everything. And I would say, and I thank you for, your comment about independent creators. You too, as an independent creator, I love everything that you post. Everyone should go subscribe to your Substack. And you're such a great person to follow online because I feel informed but not panicked. But I will say, like, the algorithm, I think more and more is favoring this kind of also outrage sort of content. And it's not new, but I think that it's renewed. Like I've sensed it even in the last few weeks that something
Right.
has shifted where those kinds of items or those kinds of videos, pop up in my feed more than anything else. Like, do you feel that the algorithms are also sort of playing in Trump's hand?
100%. And again, these are all, in the same way that media companies, traditional media companies are publicly traded companies, social media companies are publicly traded companies, and they have to keep growing and growing and growing. They've got their quarterly shareholder meetings. They got to show, we gained at Meta and on YouTube at Google and Snap and X and everything. Or I guess X is not publicly traded anymore. Anyway, but most social media companies are publicly traded, and they need to show growth. And so they know that the easiest way to get engagement is to make people mad, to make people fearful. And I always tell people when they ask me, how do I stay sane or how do I, make sense of the news? I try to do a really good job at curating my news diet. I do follow some outrage accounts just so I know what's happening. But I also need, we all have the ability to, now I know these social media, algorithms will show us people that we don't follow. But we all have the choice to engage with, and it's rewarding. Engagement is
Yeah.
rewarding. When you like something, you're rewarding it. When you comment, you're rewarding it. When you spend time, pause reading it, you're rewarding it with your attention and your interaction. And then that tells the algorithm that, oh, we want to see more of that. So withhold your rewarding of these accounts. Don't engage with them. Don't give them the time of day. Don't give them your likes and your comments and your, peace of mind.
Yeah.
And that's a little thing that you can do to fight back. Curate your media diet with people that aren't going to make you outraged all the time. An easy test is if somebody is constantly making you mad about something, but then not telling you how you can fix it, that's a good, alarm bell should go off that they're not really interested in solving the thing. It's like going to a doctor that's like really good at diagnosing the problem. And you're like, well, what do I take? They're like, I don't know. It's like, well, that's not very helpful. If you're not going to tell me how to fix it. So I think that if, social media companies don't do their, I think, due diligence or, for the good of womankind, and, reel in how they're using outrage to bait us all, then we have all the ability to just not engage with the accounts that do that.
Yeah. And people are so powerful. I think that's just and I know this is a big thread in your work too, is to remind people of the power of government and of rule of law. I think you're so good at telling, like, this is not allowed, this is allowed, this is, a lot of what I think this administration is doing is wanting, and again, it's in the storytelling with faking your publicists of like appearing more powerful than they are. Is there anything that you can share with us? That's sort of not giving you hope, but like somewhere where the administration seems more spooky or more powerful than they actually are.
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind isn't necessarily what people can do against the administration, but things that people can do in the private sector to prevent companies from kowtowing to the administration, like what we saw with Disney, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of people canceled their subscriptions to Hulu and Disney Plus, and in a couple of days, Disney lost $4 billion in market share, which is a lot of money. I
Yeah.
mean, Disney's still a $200 billion company, but that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Stock goes down, people get angry. So sort of economic boycotts all at the same time. Someone said, targeted a strike in an economic sense. A lot of these actions, like I said, withholding, giving your attention to accounts that just enrage you. A lot of these things seem like drop in the buckets, but if people do them all at the same time, they are quite powerful. One thing that I think and again, the ways that states can push back on the federal government with lawsuits, it really, a lot of this stuff does come down to whether the administration is going to listen to judges.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether or not they're going to listen. Now, they've tried to avoid some things, but like when a federal judge ruled that they couldn't send the National Guard into Portland, like they stopped. When they ruled that they couldn't send it to Chicago, they stopped. Then someone, reversed that. But for now, they're mostly following judicial rulings. I think the thing that's a scary moment is if we get to a point where they're like flat out ignoring Supreme Court rulings, even though the Supreme Court is like on the side of the White
Right.
House and the president. But I do think that there are a lot of things that people, my whole thing is civics and government and understanding. And I do think that I don't want to say like a calmness or a peace of mind, but there is some solace in understanding the rule book because like they're looking at the same rule book. And the rule book is pretty short. It's written, 200-year-old, English and kind of hard to follow, but it's the same rule book. And if we all understand the actual rules, we can kind of get ahead of the strategy. And I think that's one thing that's really important with civic education and government education is like knowing what can and can't happen, but also allowing that to then help predict the next step and get in front of it before, you get surprised.
Right, right. Yeah, Robert mentioned the Target strike being really successful. And I love your point about the judges because there's been also Trump appointed judges. I feel like there was one. What happened 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think the Trump appointed judge in Portland, that was the one who initially ruled against him, Karen Immigrant. She was a Trump appointee, and she's like, you can't do this. Here's what the law says. You're doing something different. No, you can't. You can't stop.
Yeah, literally a Karen. So there's. This is what I keep seeing, though, and this is purely anecdotal based on no data or science. But I think that there's something really interesting happening with white women in these ICE raids, like where white women kind of know that they can put their bodies on the line, like that privilege, basically, right? That of whiteness, particularly for women when they're with men, is that men won't be as violent with them because again, white supremacy and all the shit that has to do with it. And I think I'm loving seeing a lot of what it seems like would be maybe in another world, Karens using their privilege to really, put their bodies on the line and stop these ICE raids, or at least be the body between all of the other protesters whose bodies wouldn't be as sort of safe if we lived are you noticing
No,
that
I was just
too?
saying, Karen. Look, I think Karen Energy got a bad rap. It had a tough branding obstacle at first, but it turns out that if you point it in the right direction, it can be an incredible force for world change. And I think that we should have had Trump be Karen's publicist originally early on and help get a really good branding for it. But that energy I've seen those videos too of people getting in front of ICE agents and they kind of buffer. They don't know what to do. They're like, I'm traditionally a man. I'm not supposed to do this, but then they're attacking me. It's like the pinwheel is like spinning in their head, and they don't entirely know what to do. So yes, that force, that energy in the right way is an incredible force for good.
Yeah, Robert said, want to speak to the ICE manager. That's right. That's what you should do. Yeah, what you live in California. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen if this occupation will happen. But what can people do in California right now? I know. Well, there's a special election coming up too, obviously, and that if anyone lives in California and you haven't, I think it's too late for early voting, but I think you can still get your ballot and be able to vote, or you can definitely still vote for the redistricting special election. But yeah, what can people do? Like, what I guess, yeah, what's your advice if you are in a city that is either where you're seeing an ICE raid happen, or there's military occupation? Like, what are you seeing as the best sort of tools of resistance for citizens in those places?
Well, I think one immediate thing is, don't, if you're able to, right? If you're able to give your time or your money to organizations that are helping people and families of undocumented people whose worlds are being disrupted by people being taken from their homes, from their place of work, of worship, of schools, right? There are, sometimes these people are the breadwinners for the family, whoever they are. And so being able to donate to organizations on the ground, local, or volunteer at them that are helping these people in these communities is one thing that's important. The other thing I would say is that, yes, like you mentioned, we have the ballot measure on the ballot in California, Prop 50. Everyone who is watching this, I hope you vote yes. If you know someone in California, I have a whole explainer about why I think it's important, but tell friends in California to vote yes. But there are dozens of ballot measures across the country at the state level. There are way many more than that at the county level, the city level. There are mayoral elections. We talked about one of them earlier. There are city council elections. There's a lot of stuff at the local level that's on the ballot this year. Yeah, you just have New Jersey, governor, and you have Virginia governor and a couple people in the state house. But we're talking county and city. We're at sheriff. I mean, there's so much stuff. And if we're talking about the people who are the local law enforcement on the ground in communities, a lot of these people are on the ballot, or the people who hire them are on the ballot. So definitely don't skip on an election just because it's not the federal or the state level. There's stuff, literally people who have the power to make policy in your backyard. A lot of them are on the ballot this year, so make sure you know who those people are and vote for them. And then, yes, obviously, if you have the ability, donate your time and money to resources helping undocumented people.
Yeah. And give us the explainer on Prop 50 for people who don't know why it's important.
Sure. So way back years ago in July of 2025, President Trump called the governor of Texas. It does feel like there needs, it's like,
there's
7 dog years to 1 human year. Like, what's the 2020? What's the modern era of like months to years? We'll figure it out. But years ago in July 2025, President Trump called the governor of Texas and said, "Hey, I want to keep the House in the 2026 midterms. We only have a 3-seat Republican majority. If you, Texas, redistrict, aka gerrymander your seats, we could pick up 5 additional seats. That would help protect the House." The governor of Texas said, "Sure." So we called all the legislators back into an emergency session. Texas is full of, so many go-getters in government that they meet for 4 months every other year to make policy for the state. That is true. They only meet in odd-numbered years from January until like early May. So he calls them all back into a special session. The Democratic members of the state house go, "We're not joining this," and they flee the state. And they get on buses and chartered planes, and they're doing like a publicity tour around the country, because if they're not in the state, then they can't be captured by the state government law enforcement and compelled to appear in the state house. So they don't have a quorum to meet. After a while, the people who are running around the country are incurring daily fines of $500. There are other penalties, so they do go back. The session meets, it passes the Senate, it passes the House in Texas, and Governor Abbott signs it into law at the end of August. Well, Gavin Newsom goes, "Well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to do that." So California is going to gerrymander 5 seats in the other direction just to cancel out what you all just did. But the only problem is that unlike in Texas, where the state legislature, the state House and Senate draw the lines for congressional districts, for state House districts and Senate districts, people like you and I, Liz, get to draw the lines in California. Every 10 years, a 14-person commission, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, 4 independents, get chosen, ordinary people, and we draw the lines to make sure they're fair. It's an independent redistricting commission. So in order to circumvent that, this prop amends the California state constitution to say, okay, just for the next 3 elections, 2026, 2028, 2020, 2030, we're going to use a legislature-drawn map that is a gerrymandered map, but only in the other direction, just to cancel out what Texas is doing, because their new map also is for the next 3 elections. So it is purely, think about it as a very even counterpunch, equal and opposite reaction to what Texas did. No more, no less. It's just meant to cancel out what Texas has done. And so that's that proposition on the ballot to neutralize the cheating that Texas just did.
Do you think that there's like, how can Democrats not always be on the defensive? Like, this is like, I think one example that's sort of an like good, right? Like where Democrats are actually, and I think even some people were like, well, we don't want to do what they're doing, or we don't want to, we're against redistricting for partisan reasons. And so if we do it, then, we're sort of just as bad as them. But I was actually very happy. I was like, good. Like, if they play dirty, we have to play dirty. But yeah, like, is there anything else that you think the Democrats should be doing so that it's not constantly playing defense, where we can be, because if you're playing defense all the time, you're going to lose, right?
Totally. And, I think this goes back to, this is something I was going to say earlier when we were chatting with V, but there's just so much bad advice that Democratic consultants have given people over the years of somehow taking people who have really interesting, complex, fun personalities and like sucking the soul out of them so that they're automatons. And, they're, if you're trying not to, if you're so afraid of, and I'm not talking in like truly offensive stuff, but if you're so afraid of like some minor joke or quip offending somebody and just playing it so safe all the time, you're not going to see people's personality. People are going to come off as stilted and not themselves. And there are so many examples of people, how often do we see somebody after an election and be like, why weren't they like that during the election? Why weren't like that at the debate stage? Where was that person? And so I think just, just not putting these like, straitjackets on people and confining them metaphorically to not be themselves or to withhold their thoughts about something. Authenticity is tantamount. That's what rules today. That's what people connect with online. So I think part of it is not listening to consultants, being your true self. But in terms of like a policy standpoint, I think there are I think part of it is just educating people about, like, there's so many examples of Democrats getting caught flat-footed, right? With the redistricting that happened in 2010, that sort of touched off this massive round of gerrymandering in the 2010s. You have obviously in, judges, and just the Republicans were so focused on taking back the Supreme Court. That was their thing. It was many, many years of planning. And I think Democrats often come up, and I've been a part of these, and I've looped you into being a part of these sort of last minute efforts, around an election to try to get people to turn out to vote and motivate people. And it's not that those are bad, but there are also, the other side is like 50-year-long campaigns to get rid of Roe versus Wade, to try to counteract gay marriage, to try to swing the Supreme Court one direction. And I think they can play the long game, and people who fund these causes can play the long game to really build infrastructure, so it's not just like some fun thing that pops up before the election and then kind of goes away after. It's the long-term infrastructure and power that needs to be supported.
Yeah, and that it's so much more than just about the policy. It's about the story you're going to tell about the policy. And I think the left is so concerned with like always doing the right thing and not, I don't know, falling in. I mean, the whole Zoran thing, right? And just democratic socialists, like similar thing happened with Bernie and AOC, right? Very popular figures within the Democratic Party being sort of shunned by the party because, oh, we're going to be called socialists. They're going to call you socialists no matter what. They're going to call you socialists because you don't want people to die in the street because they can't get insulin. Like they're going to do that anyways. And so stop trying to build policy around a world where that story won't be told about you when they're going to do it anyway. They're always going to argue in bad faith. They're always, those are we actually know that those are the things they're going to say about us. And the right doesn't care. Like, they do worse than what we say about them sometimes, right? And I think we've seen it with this administration. There's just, they don't care. And they're going to tell the story the way they want to tell it, right? They're going to take the White House website and just do whatever the fuck they want, put boobs and, drug addicts and to try and tell the story that they want to tell. And so, yeah, I mean, whatever. It's a story as old as time. It's like
But
that's
but
really better messaging. But
there's something really important in what you're saying. Is I think storytelling is important, because I think a lot of times Democrats try to approach it with like facts and figures and
yeah,
stats and information. It's like, well, X a million people this, blah blah. And it's like people's brains can't really process the difference. Like we're talking in like an emotional sense between like 10 million and 40 million. Like it's many millions. Like we don't connect with it, but we connect with an individual case study, right? If
yeah,
you go and if you have, I think More Perfect Union is an organization that
yeah.
is a really good example of this, right? They'll go and do an individual case study of somebody or just one person. We connect more with one person's story, right? And so like the experience, if there was a 10-minute video exploring what it's like to have a family member taken by ICE. What does that do to their kids? What does that do to the family? What does that do to their income? What does that do emotionally? What is that like going to school and having to like do one case study, because people can relate emotionally to a
Mhm.
single situation, rather than these sort of abstract facts and figures that just feel like school at the end
It's
of
so
the day.
true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I saw, I went to both conventions in 2016, and that's what I think struck me so much from the difference between Donald Trump's speech and then Hillary Clinton's speech is in both cases I kind of drifted off for different reasons. But d- and definitely the RNC was. I remember like coming out of his speech, which was like I think almost 2 hours. It was just we think he rambles now. He was always a rambler. And I just was like, I need a margarita. Like I remember like stepping out and literally like drinking a margarita in one sip. But it was very dark, it was very long, it was full of grievances. But Hillary Clinton's was like positive, but so nerdy and so wordy that I caught myself drifting off sometimes. And I was like, stop, like, this is history. Like, this is, at the time it was like, oh my God, this can be the first female president. And I still, yeah, it was very wonky. And so, and just coming back to, these sort of firebrands of AOC and Bernie and Zoran, like, they're resonating. Yes, their policies are resonating with people because affordability is definitely the number one issue for everybody
Mhm.
or for most people right now and under these economic circumstances. But they're really good messengers. They have one message and they say it over and over and over again, like Donald Trump.
Right.
It's like a version of "Make America Great Again." The rent is too damn high. I mean, that's pretty much what they repeat over and over again, and that works for people.
And they also you see videos of them talking to people on the street in their
Yeah.
communities, like having real conversations and getting these case studies, right? These individual examples. I mean, we see that constantly. Bernie's been doing that for years. AOC does that all the time. Zoran does it too, where they're talking to people and you're hearing these case studies, right? It's not just them talking. I mean, maybe it's some of that where they will just talk about big numbers and facts and figures to camera happens a little bit, but a lot of it is them hearing people's problems, right? Listening to stories from people in their community that are relatable stories that lots of people are going through. And I think that kind of thing really connects with people online and in real life.
Yeah, yeah. They talk like you. And what did I want to say? That's it. Does anyone have any questions? I know Ben has been on for an hour, so we're gonna let him probably go. But thank you, Ben, for joining us. You have an amazing Substack. You have
Thank
an
you.
amazing Instagram. You are the person that you talked about of like someone who, well, you're not someone who just scares and then doesn't give information about where to go with that. You are the things that you post are, yeah, both informative and encouraging. And I really encourage everyone to go follow your work, to watch your new PBS show. Can you tell us about it
Yeah,
before
it's called
we go?
Civics Made Easy. It's 12 episodes. 9 have been released so far, and it's on PBS's YouTube channel and the PBS app and PBS.org. So wherever you interact with PBS, my show is probably there. And yeah, and then if people are curious, I have a book called What Does the Constitution Actually Say, that explains our founding document in easy to understand terms, vetted by constitutional experts and professors of across the ideological spectrum. And so, yeah, my whole mission is just, I keep hearing studies over and over that have shown that a third of people who don't vote do it because they don't understand how government works. People people may not vote because they don't care or think it's all corrupt or they don't think it benefits, but a third of non-voters report that they don't participate because it's hard to understand. And so my work is focused on bringing those people into the fold. Just because it's confusing, you haven't voted in the past, haven't participated, doesn't matter. All the power that you talked about earlier, Liz, with the people have more power than they realize. That power just gets magnitude the more people participate and do those collective actions
It's so
simultaneously.
true. It's so true. And I think that's the power of the moment. Yeah, I know that there's a lot to keep us sad and angry and upset, but there's somewhere in the algorithm, if you follow the right people and train the algorithm.
Like you're a hopeful person to follow. You're somebody that brings joy. You don't dwell on the bummer stuff, or even if you talk about it, you do it in a way that brings people into the fold and makes them feel better of themselves. I put you in the hopeful and action camp as well, for sure.
Well, thank you. That's sweet. Yeah, last night I was, again, it's not because of your text. Like I was,
I am starting to realize I may have ruined your night in a genuine way. It started as like a joke, but it's come up enough where I'm like, maybe I'll be careful what I do.
It's getting dark early. Like, I think it was like 6. Like, I was like, why is it already dark? Like, and then I saw that and I just was like, and maybe we can end on this, like, and maybe this is a dumb thing to say, but I'm just going to admit that I was walking with my roommate and I just was like, I wish I could have like a conversation with like Martin Luther King. Like I wish I wish someone from the past could just tell us what to do. And this is because this is the thing I think about often when I get really sad or when I get really helpless or when I get, and I do have moments where I'm just like, I want to give up entirely. It's just so frustrating. It's so painful. And, or for me anyways, I just like, sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'll just never look at the news and I'll just, disconnect entirely because there's nothing I can do. And I think these, our heroes, right? Civil rights activists and, feminists who fought for the right to vote and, for all kinds of, laws that we get to enjoy today. Like, that was bad. Yeah, this is bad, but like that was people have gone through horrible circumstances and believed in the vision that they have for the future. And at the same time, I think what is getting me lately is your text. It's like I know how to fight or resist. I know I think I know how to do activism in a world that's like normal, right? Like 10 years ago activism, like 2016 activism, I kind of knew how to do. And it's not to say that it wasn't hard some days or that it wasn't difficult, but like I knew that it was like you knew that if you did something or said something, it had an impact, and not necessarily right away, not necessarily instantaneously, but like things mattered. Words mattered, laws mattered. And I think what's getting to me with things recently is just I feel like I'm seeing things that feel not only offensive and sad and enraging, but like surreal. There's like a surreal nature. And I think that's what when I was looking at the White House website, I was like, this is supposed to just be a boring website. This I can't believe what I'm seeing. And I think with now with the rise of AI, and now it's like deep fakes and Donald Trump pooping on activists, and you're just like, what? I don't know, that there's just some days where I'm like, what would Martin Luther King tell us to do?
How would he react to the video of Harry Sisson being,
Yes.
dumped on by a helicopter?
Yes, sorry for people who haven't seen it. It really did happen. And that wasn't even fake. I mean, it was an AI video, but it was made by the government. I mean, it's just it's so beyond comprehension, and it does, I think, become difficult to know what to do when it feels like nothing matters. And I think that's just, there's maybe no blueprint, or maybe there is. Maybe I'm exaggerating, and it's like, okay, like get over yourself, white woman. Like things are not that bad, but I think I'm struggling with knowing what to do, and sort of how to even stay. And this is why I started this Substack, Airplane Mode. It was just sort of like, let's go on airplane mode. Like, it was a way to kind of alleviate a lot of the difficulties of being informed, so that we stay civically engaged. And I'll just be honest, like sometimes I feel like I don't really know. Like I don't know how to be civically engaged.
I think you're doing it. I think you are
No,
being.
sorry, this is not about me. I'm
Yeah.
just like, does this make sense to anybody? And like, is this something? Yeah, like what do you think? And sorry, I just don't want to make it about me. It's more about I think a sentiment that a lot of people are feeling of like, is what I'm doing mattering? Like,
Right.
but sorry,
It
go
is.
ahead.
It is. I mean, I think that, again, I think it goes back to the point we were talking about earlier, which is like, why, what is the reason that they're putting it there, right? It's a distraction. It's to distract from the things that they don't want us to focus on. The only reason somebody would put something like
Yeah,
what we see on the White House, website, on the White House website, they're not just doing it to, take the piss out of somebody or like attack. Like there's a reason that it's being done, and that is to get us talking about this rather than other things. So the more people don't take the bait,
yeah,
there's the whole argument between, do you are by not taking the bait and calling it out, are we normalizing it?
yeah,
I go back and forth on that, but I can tell you that there is a reason they're putting this on, and that is to distract people from the things that are polling really badly for this administration. Not releasing the Epstein files, taking away people's subsidies for health insurance, all the other things that are going to be lost, kicking people off of Medicaid with the big beautiful bill as that starts to get implemented. All the things that they know polls badly with their own voters and supporters. If they get people distracted by websites and photos of shirtless people, then that's less time being spent in having the conversation dwell on this other thing. So, let the distractions go by. Keep everyone keeping focused on the things that actually they don't want us to talk about. That, I think, is something that is empowering and is
yeah.
important and is in pursuit of the same goals and rights that people came before us, saw.
Yeah, it's so true. That's so true. So seeing these surreal events as almost like fear, right? Like that they're actually doing this out of they're like acting out because they're afraid, and it's not because nothing matters, it's because they know that they're, okay, so that helps me. That helps me. Kumbaya. No, it's like
Yeah.
I think just coming back to sort of what we were saying earlier, so much of what this regime is really good at, and any regime really, right, is storytelling. That's what racism is. That's what sexism is. That's
Yeah.
what any kind of authoritarian or oppressive system is. It's really good at telling stories, and so and we have to like so. I guess my point is reframing is a really, I mean, for me, it just helps. That's why I write every day. Like, I'm like, okay, this thing is so scary. This thing is leaving me fully perplexed and depressed. How can I write this in a way that sort of reframes it for me so it's not so challenging? I mean, that can be something we do in our personal lives with journaling or,
Yeah.
therapy or talking with a friend. And I think that's sort of what we're maybe being compelled to do in these circumstances that are like, yeah, there's like just a war of information, a war on information. And I think storytelling, and it's like being in any kind of abusive sort of dynamic, or when you're being gaslit, or which are terms that maybe are overused, but I think really apply here, where there's a reality that's being sort of imposed onto you. Like gaslighting is like a form of colonizing experience. It's like colonizing your brain, right? And saying this is what happened and this is not happening, and
Right.
I'm amazing even though I'm hitting you, right? It's that, I think, psychologically sort of happening in in the world right now, and I think particularly with this regime. So yeah, reframing is going to be very important, and I think a really good tool for people. And I think you just did that for us. So thank you.
Whatever we both can do to help people, find solace, and also, make sense of the chaos, and not get, taken down
Yeah.
the wrong path and falling for the trick.
100%. And Mary Jane said we had a similar person here in Italy years ago, Berlusconi. Yeah, it's like,
Yep.
I think it really important. I mean, that's why I try and have imaginary conversations with people from past lives, or because I'm like, I know it's not supposed to be easy, right? It's normal that it's hard, and that's okay, right? Like anything that's worth fighting for is I think hard, but I think given the circumstances, and given just the way that information travels and is created now, it's just it's knowing how to arm yourself or defend yourself, I guess, from it.
Right.
And that's like a whole it's like sort of information hygiene almost, right? Sort of what you
Totally.
were talking about before, like knowing how to, in the same way that I don't know, you create certain habits around screen time, for example, if you or just oral hygiene, like I brush my teeth in the morning and at night, like those are the rules, like creating better habits for how we're consuming information.
It's the hydrogen peroxide for our brains.
Yeah.
In a metaphorical sense,
There we go.
don't put that into your head. It's supposed to be for your mouth.
Okay, don't. Yeah, but it does. It feels like we're drinking bleach, which the president ironically told us to do.
And that brings it full circle.
Full circle. So don't drink bleach. Do follow Ben's works on all of the platforms. His books are incredible. His new PBS show is so cool. You're such a fun nerd. And you make me feel safe. So thank you for sharing all of your amazing knowledge. Thank you everyone for joining us on this fun little Friday afternoon, evening wrap up of the week. I hope you all have a really restful weekend. I hope you practice some really good information hygiene. Maybe this is a good maybe this weekend we'll all be a little bit more intentional about what we're consuming, so that we and seeing that as a way to really fight back.
And don't text your friends when they're on their way out. Wait until the next morning when they're hungover eating a burrito and drinking coffee to send the text.
Don't send the White House Gov website to anyone past 3 p.m. in any time zone. Things I never thought would be controversial is the White House website. That's really funny. Okay, well, I love you, Ben. I love you, everyone, for joining us.
Love you too. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.